competition committee announced moments ago which proposals out of the 19 are going to be forwarded in front of the membership, which ones that they are in support of, which ones they said yes to. Charles Davis of the NFL Network, my compadre from the NFL Media Group, man who calls National Football League contests for Fox, right here on the Rich Eisen Show in person.
Great to see you again, Rich.
I love you, man. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. It's great to see you. So before we're going to talk quite a bit about the draft and your thoughts of the draft,
because
we're now a month out.
I have a question for you before we get to that.
But I would like to go over these playing rule proposals that the competition committee said yes to.
Okay.
Okay. Number one is the extra point is now forevermore. Going to be 33 yards.
Knew that was coming.
Okay,
that's not a surprise.
They say yes to that. That offensive and defensive player callers, no matter where they are, on the sideline or up in the booth, can communicate with players inside their helmets. What do you think about that?
I have no problem with that. I mean, we were doing the same thing anyway in terms of the offensive coordinator signaling it down, this person signaling it in.
And now you just delay games, right?
Yeah, you eliminate the middleman.
Okay, so now somebody's sitting high up.
If you get a delay a game now, we really got a question for what you're doing.
But why wouldn't you now want to put every single offensive coordinator up in the booth? Because it's a better vantage point, right? Defensive coordinator.
Much better vantage point. The reason you probably wouldn't at different teams is depending on relationship with quarterback, personality of quarterback.
Face-to-face still wins.
Some of those guys you might need to be right there, and that person has to be in their face.
Just because they need...
Because they need it for whatever reason. Some of them, with their personality, sometimes the emotions get too high. This person can tamp them down the right way.
Sure.
It all depends on that.
Okay. Number 3 is chop blocks illegal, all of them.
Hallelujah. We're talking about safety. I mean, nothing tougher than that. When we're talking about chop blocks, we're talking about engaged, correct? That's what we're talking about.
That's what a chop block is, right?
Chop block is, right? Engage with one, someone comes and chops you from the side or from the
Well, behind is where they got rid of that.
They got rid of that first.
On the side for some were...
And in the college game, it's going towards the play as opposed to going away from the play, which I think they're working on now, or maybe have even tweaked. But that pin and post is what a lot of people call it, up here and gone, finally.
Well, and this is one that's for the defenders, right? Now, which teams are upset about this, though, offensively?
Well, let's face it. We always go back to the Alex Gibbs school of blocking. They're not going to like that a whole lot because they're dependent.
Which teams still do it? Ravens still do it, right?
Ravens have that influence there. Kyle Shanahan. Because of the background with Atlanta now, there may be some of that. But all in all of them are doing a really good job of coaching it. Coaching it the proper way. No one's doing it on purpose and that sort of deal. But, yeah, defenders would be very happy.
Patrick Peterson tweeted out a half an hour ago, finally, no chop blocks. At NFL got this one right. Now see about getting to the bottom of that mysterious catch rule, LOL, says Patrick Peterson.
I love Patrick.
So do I.
Here's my question, though.
Okay.
With his tweet, chop block, cut block.
Well, there's a big difference.
Two different things.
There's a big difference, right?
And I just want, Patrick knows what he's talking about, but as a general rule, in his position, you're not worried about chops.
Yeah. Well, he's worried about cut. So you think he might be thinking the cut?
You worry about cut because the chop, that's down.
Explain the difference to those who may not know.
When we're talking about the chop block in the interior in the line, all right? Guy comes through, offensive lineman typically is engaged with him up high. Another offensive lineman or a running back, somebody comes out, cuts him down.
Right.
That's what we call pin and post or other terms for it. Cut block out in the open field, guy's going, you see him coming, he drops low, cuts your legs out, blocks your guy, keeps going.
You can still do that.
Still do that. That's good. You've got a chance to see it.
Competition committee says the horse collar rule, now when you grab the nameplate, you don't have to go inside.
You don't have to go inside now.
You like that?
Yeah, because it's still the same general effect. All right, that quick and the legs go, and that's where things get bent and awkwardly. Plus, you know what else it does, Rich?
Yeah.
It helps the officials. It really helps them because that fight of was the hand in, was it not? Guys with long hair, which we're not going to take out of the game.
Well, you can't see the nameplate.
Can you do?
Right.
I think it helps the officials, and I'm all for that. They got enough to worry about.
The competition committee says yes to making it a delay of game when a team attempts to call a timeout when it's not permitted to do so, which is, I guess, calling back-to-back timeouts.
Back-to-back, out of timeouts. I think that's what we're talking about.
It's 5 yards. 5 yards now.
We're not talking about before the ball snapped or as the ball timeout. Did they get it in time?
No, when you're not
when
allowed.
you don't have it. That's cool.
Okay. I guess
Frankly,
I'm mandated to call it a Chris Webber rule, even though we're mixing sports. 5-yard penalty for an eligible receiver illegally touching a forward pass after being out of bounds and reestablishing himself inbounds, and make it a loss of down. They're taking away the 5-yard. Now you're losing a down.
And they're making it really difficult, aren't they?
Yes, they are. And then the last one is eliminates multiple spots of enforcement for a double foul after a change of possession. I don't even want to get into that. But what they didn't do is say yes to disqualifying a player who's penalized twice in one game for certain types of unsportsmanlike conduct fouls. The competition committee said no to that. However, John Mara, who is on the competition committee, one of the owners of the New York Giants, said, quote unquote, of this proposal, it's not dead yet.
I like the idea that they didn't just automatically rubber stamp it through. And when I say rubber stamp it through, that it didn't just go through right now, because I think you've got unintended consequences that have to come out that they need to go through and figure it out. Because you're talking about some of the emotion. Does this count the same as that type of an act? There are a lot of things that we sit at home and we say, now that's egregious. That guy should go for that.
Yes.
That should be the one. And then others, you go, they're bouncing him for what? And does it fall into the same category? And I think what John Mayer and the competition committee are doing, which is prudent, which is take a little bit more time and let's run through some scenarios and make sure we've got this right before we say two of them and you're out of there.
Don't you think we need a backup? I'm with Charles Davis of the NFL Network here on the Rich Eisen Show, but don't you think we need some form of a rule as the safety net for the next Odell Beckham Jr. who loses his mind on the field, to catch that and eject him? Because it's such a big game.
Yeah.
It was late in the season.
And
he's a star. Norman's a star.
And
Last thing they're going to do is basically say, both of you out of here.
They didn't want to do that.
No. So if you have a penalty where somebody goes, basically it gives carte blanche to a star to basically say to a ref, go ahead and try and eject me from this game.
I dare you to run me.
Really?
I dare you to run me.
You know, and...
Do you go Crash Davis? Can you say the magic word there? Is that what you do? You go Crash
Maybe
Davis?
so. You know what I mean? Like, so if the refs can't do it themselves properly, there needs to be a rule to do it. And I guess this is a way of them saying refs need to do a better job of it.
Listen, I don't disagree with having that safety net. Mm-hmm. I do agree with them taking a little more time, because they've got to figure out that if these things fall into the bucket of you're gone,
yes,
versus this over here, are we going to have any issues where all of a sudden that same guy that we've tried to keep in the game, who's the star, he gets bounced for one of those smaller ones? You're like, whoa, 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 whoa. That's the same as this?
Well,
I just want to make sure that they've got it all down and then said, okay, let's run through our scenarios. This falls in. Okay, this happens. Oh. Because that's what we always end up with.
Well,
with
how
rules
about
changes.
this? Instead of unnecessary roughness penalties, which you can do that, where it's just like, hey, you didn't have to do that.
Right.
But, you know, in the scheme of things, you got, you know, the collision happened, and it's unnecessary. How about unsportsmanlike roughness? How about that?
Now we're talking.
Where Aqib Talib's face mask penalty on Philly Brown on the 2-yard line in the Super Bowl, after which he admitted, what was it going to cost me?
Right.
Another yard?
Another yard and time.
So I grabbed him by the face mask. That's now called, instead of a 15-yard face mask penalty, that's called unsportsmanlike roughness.
And that's like flagrant one in the NBA.
Yes. And
Right.
I know we're adding a new layer to stuff that would now adds to a rule book that's already as thick as the tax code.
Mm-hmm.
But we are now telling players, 2 of these, you're red carded, like in soccer, and let's figure it out. Let's just sit down, figure out what penalties there are.
That's the key right there. Sit down and figure out what penalties there are in there, because that's going to be that's going to tell the tale for everything, because everyone adjusts.
Yes.
Once you establish and you show that you're going to hold firm on it, everyone will adjust.
And that's
going to be the next thing.
That's my prediction on this, Charles, is that, because we talked about it with Peter King in the first hour, everything is incremental with the NFL. This is going to wind up getting tabled. We like the idea. We're not going to be knee-jerk reaction to what happened with Odell Beckham. Referees are going to be a lot more trigger-happy when it comes to ejecting players this year, so everybody's on notice. In the meantime, we're going to figure out what penalties might actually fit in this if everybody can't play correctly this fall.
And you know what else?
That's going to be the way this works out.
And you know what else I think will happen? I don't know if Dean Blandino and his crew are going to address this quietly and not have us deal with it and what have you. How early are the officials going to take charge of the field before a game. I know there's a rule and there's a time frame and everything, just like NBA basketball, NCAA basketball, et cetera. At a certain time on the clock, the officials now take charge of the court.
Yes.
So in other words, if you're warming up in basketball and, in college basketball, I think you still can't dunk in warm-ups, right? For whatever reason. At that time frame, if you've been dunking, now there's no more, otherwise it's a technical foul.
Right.
When will they take charge of the field, and how many people will be around? Here's my reason of saying that is, you go back to Carolina, New York this year, Odell Beckham, Josh Norman. All the fallout was what after the game? This started when? Pre-game.
It did?
Early pre-game.
Somebody brought a bat on the field.
Somebody brought a bat on the field. The taunting was going on, so on and so forth. So all my point is, I don't know that you can have 45 people at every game ringing the field, but will they take charge earlier and hey, we're not having that today.
As you know, they already got rid of the bats.
That.
They got rid of all the objects before the game.
Listen,
right after that game.
And Rich, here's the thing about those things, the symbolism of those things. I'm eager to, well, not eager, but I'm going to see what's going to happen as we filter down, because my son's high school football team would run on the field with, well, what's the thing? A sledgehammer. All right, and that guy who won the big hit award the week before would lead the team out on the field. Seems fine, right? No problem until what?
Until somebody brought a bat to a big-time game.
Now that's what I'm talking about. Think about the things college kids run out there with the big heavy chains, the different things. All those different symbols, will the NCAA jump and go, okay, that could be a problem.
Charles, what do you think of a penalty box, or like instead of ejecting a player for the rest of the game, a 3-series penalty or a 5-minute clock or something? Do you think that coaches and players would be more up to that versus you're out the rest of the game for a hit in the first quarter?
I think their initial thought would be, I'd rather not lose them for the rest of the game. But I think when we start bringing in penalty boxes, time frame, things of that nature, it skews it even more.
Well,
and people want to keep things authentic to football. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
and I think that's going to be the best.
Field position.
Right, and those are things that we're using: yardage, field position, ejection, that sort of deal. But it's funny because some of those guys will go, if we had the penalty box, I could have had him for the last series in the fourth quarter. That could come up later.
We've got a bunch of phone calls here. Can we take phone calls within the next segment?
Yeah, let's do that.
I also want to hit into the fact that you are the only member of the NFL media group that does not have Laramie Tunsil as the first overall selection to Tennessee in a mock draft.
And I have a new mock draft coming out tomorrow.
You do?
That's right, I do.
Is there such a thing as a preview to a draft that doesn't really exist?
I think we can do some previews and teases. And last thing is, how happy is Goose Gossage right now that Johnny bench popped?
Well, Johnny was a little bit more safe for work, thankfully, since he was on live air here on the Rich Eisen show.
How great is Goose? Is like, that's my man right there. Thank you, Johnny.
Chin Music. If you want to chime in on that, too. We do have a phone call on that subject. So we're going to take some phone calls with Charles Davis at 844-204-RICH. Keep an eye on the Sports News Wire as well. Cole Hauser in hour number 3. Phone calls at 844-204-RICH with Charles Davis when we return to the Rich Eisen Show. All right, Charles Davis, NFL Network analyst. On Path to the Draft on NFL Network. College Football Now, as we all know from back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that one?
I certainly do.
So let's hit this draft.
Okay.
You have your new mock draft coming out tomorrow.
Yes.
Is Laramie Tunsil your number 1 overall selection? Or you're still staying away from him?
He is not.
So who do you want to give away the goods, or is? I mean, because you've got Jalen Ramsey going to Tennessee.
I popped him up there a while ago. Let's just put it to you this way, Rich. I think it's going to, well, I don't think. It's going to stay the same. I'll give you that. That's easy.
What's the reality or your version of it?
Yeah, the reality is any smart person, Tunsil's number 1.
Okay.
Because the reason that Ken Wisenhunt lost his job, Mike Munchak elevated and then kept the job despite being, 1-8?
Yes.
Is a promise. And what Munchak did, not Munchak, but Mike Mularkey did was to do a better job of not letting Marcus Mariota get hit as often.
Right.
That was thing 1 from Amy Adams Strunk. This kid cannot keep getting hit like this. This is our franchise. This is our future. And he promised and pledged, and they worked on it. And Tunsil makes way more sense for that reason. The reason that Ramsey makes a lot of sense is he's such a superior playmaker and player. Dick LeBeau, Troy Polamalu. Dick LeBeau, Jalen Ramsey. Makes a lot of sense.
So, yeah, because I know when we were at the Combine, Mayock was saying, I don't know what this kid is. We know he's awesome. Is he a DB?
Yeah.
I mean, is he a corner or is he a safety?
And you notice what Mike did, right?
He put him to safety.
He moved him to safety.
About a week later after the combine.
And I think that the reasoning is you move him to safety in today's NFL, probably a better chance to have more impact on more plays because you're more in the center of the action as opposed to removed to one side. Like when Deion took away someone,
right,
and you had to figure it all out somewhere else. Well, Deion, his jersey might not get dirty because you're going to leave him alone because he'll burn you. Well, you put Ramsey in the middle of the field, you can't totally avoid him. Somewhere, somehow, he's got a chance to make a play. And with Dick LeBeau, I think that's a perfect match.
Well, you're not the only one at this point in time to say that, right? Law, you say there's a new...
Bucky updated his the other day and also moved Tunsil down and went with Jalen Ramsey as well.
Yeah, Bucky Brooks has joined that party.
But that makes me feel better.
Gene in Detroit, Michigan, you are on with Charles Davis here on the Rich Eisen Show. Gene?
Hey, Charles.
Hello.
Hey, I grew up in Cleveland, and the Browns I'm not a Browns fan, I'm a Lions fan, but I grew up in Cleveland, and the Browns built their legacy on running backs. Back in Mary Motley and Jim Brown and Leroy Kelly, etc. I think the Browns should vote not draft a quarterback on that number 2 pick. They should go after Ezekiel Elliott.
Now, Gene, I've said it at the Combine, and I said it after the Combine. If you think this kid is Le'Veon Bell Part 2, if you think he can, and thanks for the call, Gene.
Yeah.
And I hope Gene as well, that he grows up in Cleveland and then says that he turns to the Lions. That if you think he's the real deal, you got to take him. I mean, why wouldn't you want to take somebody who's on the field 3 downs, 3 downs on offense every single snap? Why wouldn't you do that?
What's interesting is that he said he's a Lions fan, right? Go back in time. Adrian Peterson's draft year. The Lions held the number 2 pick, I believe, in the draft that year.
Yes.
And decided, obviously, not to go in that direction.
So who do you think the Cleveland Browns take? Who do you think the Cleveland Browns take right now?
I still say it's quarterback until proven different. Everyone's saying the signals are there that they don't really like it's way too early for them to say whether they like a guy or don't like a guy. But if it's brand new administration, brand new head coach, you usually started out with your brand new quarterback if you don't have someone you really like. I think that they're more likely to draft one of the rookies, whether it's Goff or Wentz, than it is for them to actually make a deal for a Kaepernick or a Griffin.
Well,
That's what I think.
RG3
That's my gut tells
was in,
me.
and they're talking about how Kaepernick is going to stay there, and
RG3's in, you don't let him out of the building, right? You kind of say this is it, unless you're kicking tires elsewhere,
right? And
that's why I think they're doing. They've got to kick them along the way, but typically they like to start with that quarterback. And yes, I know the Browns' history in recent times has not been great in drafting quarterbacks, but I also would say that they've had a little bit of bad luck in there because Tim Couch was headed towards being a good quarterback and got hurt.
I mean, the bad luck, you could go on and on. Kelly Holcomb's been their best quarterback since they've got.
And he had to step in. He stepped in when Couch got hurt.
And so, who would the Browns take if it's not a quarterback?
Well, if it's not a quarterback, that offensive line is being decimated day by day.
And what if Tunsil is not there, though?
Well, if Tunsil's not there and it's not a quarterback at 2, then it's probably Jalen Ramsey. You go to the best player at that point. You just have to get good players, and Ray Horton will know how to use them. Who did Ray Horton tutor under again? Oh, yeah, that's right, Dick LeBeau.
So you bring him there, not Bosa? You don't take Bosa?
I would go Ramsey. I'd have a higher grade on Ramsey than I would on Bosa. Here's the thing about Joey Bosa. I absolutely love him as a player. I think the fears of him being that edge rusher that everyone thinks can get 12 to 15 sacks a year, they're real about is he really going to hit that number? Now, someone pointed out to me the other day in a discussion, when J.J. Watt came out, did we really think he was going to be a 15 sack, and now obviously a 20 sack per year type of a guy? Weren't really sure about that, but I don't know about Bosa being that guy, but I think he's going to be a terrific player. And in a year that's devoid of edge rushers, he's going to get moved up a little bit in the draft and be a real valuable commodity. But I would have a higher grade on Jalen Ramsey and would go there before I would go Bosa.
Charles Davis here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's talk Cowboys now. Okay, they're sitting there at 4. And you've got yourself Tony Romo, who is coming off of
the clavicle.
A clavicle, right?
Again.
Exactly. And Jerry Jones has said, he said at the Combine, and he has now said at the owners' meeting, we're not taking a quarterback at number 4 overall. This is a guy who, when Romo didn't have another surgery on his clavicle, having a far worse draft position in the first round, although high up enough, thought about Johnny Manziel?
Didn't just
Okay,
think about
when
it.
Romo was 2 years younger
Yep.
and had less mileage and fewer broken bones surgically repaired in his body,
Yes.
was thinking Manziel. Wentz and
Goff.
Goff may be available, both of them.
Likely one, maybe two.
Do you think he is truly meaning what he's saying, or he's throwing up a smokescreen so nobody pops in front of him at 3 and takes one of these guys?
He can throw up as much of a smokescreen as he wants. I don't think people are going to believe him anyway. I think people are going to go worst case scenario. Hey, I'm thinking Dallas is going to take a quarterback. That's what I would believe in all the draft rooms. Even if we took Jerry at his word, I said in the beginning, half joking, but I think I'm really more convicted about it. We haven't heard Stephen Jones say that.
That's the one.
And Stephen Jones was the reason I think it's, and deservedly so, should get a lot of credit for them not taking Johnny Manziel. Because I think Dad wanted to turn in the card on Manziel. I've talked to enough people around there that Stephen did a heck of a job lobbying out of that. They got Zach Martin instead, a terrific player, and we see what's happened with Johnny Football. So Stephen's got a little bit more cachet with the old man, even more so than he did now. But I haven't heard Stephen say it. And until I hear Stephen's version or him say, stand on the table and say we're not taking quarterback, I'm not prepared to go there yet.
So would the Chargers go quarterback? I mean, if we're talking about
They've done
Romo
it
being in
before.
advancing years,
Done it before.
I mean, Phillip Rivers is no spring chicken either. He's in his mid-30s.
Yeah, we've seen them do that before when they did it with Breeze, and they did it with Phillip Rivers coming in with Breeze already being there. The difference there was Breeze was headed towards the free agency. In this case, Rivers is the institution, but it is age.
Mm-hmm.
So all those things are in play right there. My thing on it, though, Rich, is these two quarterbacks, I think, are very good players. I think they're really good prospects. I feel like I'm in the minority here, and I'll say it. I like them both. They can both develop being all pros. But I would not have the same – I'm not as bullish on them as I was last year with Winston and Mariota. I probably not as bullish with them even going back with the Matt Ryan. You have to remember when Sanchez came out, people were really elevating him up at that time. I don't put them same category as Andrew Luck, RG3 coming out. See, it gets skewed because some of these guys have played and they haven't been all that great. But just I remember when they were coming out. Now all of a sudden these two are better than some of those other guys coming out at that time. Well, it's a quarterback commodity. They both could prove to be, but I'm not as bullish on my grades with them as others are.
Well, do you have one more segment?
Sure.
Okay, let's take a break. We're back in a minute's time with Charles Davis. The Cowboys have made a move. And I want to discuss with you
look
about a
forward to
move
it.
that the Dallas Cowboys have made. We're back with more of your phone calls, and Charles Davis and Cole Hauser right behind him. We'll update the poll question as well. And talk Johnny Bench. A couple of you have called and want to do that too. Here on The Rich Eisen Show.
Dixon leaving Pitt.
We got a win-win situation here for the Dallas Cowboys because they not only have added addition by addition, but addition by subtraction. They have signed Alfred Morris to a 2-year contract. The butler from Washington, who fell out of favor, it seems like, with Jay Gruden.
Yeah.
The minute Jay Gruden stepped in there, you know, he did.
Carries went down.
Yeah, no, his carries went down, and I guess you need to make sure your mileage.
Matt Jones
the rookie
emerged.
from Florida emerged,
And he's a force.
but they also would use him in, obviously fantasy owners would know better than not. The butler wasn't even used inside the red zone to start pounding in the end. Matt Jones is the one that they chose. Now, it seems to me, just first blush, this is the type of guy that Dallas can use as the battering ram in the same way that DeMarco Murray was used 2 years ago. Would you agree with that assessment, Charles?
I would agree with the idea that he could do that. I can't imagine that the results would be the same.
Why is that?
A little bit more. I'm not going to say long in the tooth because he's not, but I don't think he's quite as dynamic runner as Murray is. When Murray puts the foot in the ground and decides to make that cut and go,
right,
he does that. Alfred Morris a little bit more of a, as you said, more of a brute force guy, a very good football player, obviously way better than his draft status. Because you remember, he went in the 6th round. And I remember going back the next year after his rookie year, and I checked with about 5 guys that I really trust to say, okay, what grade do you have on Alfred Morris? No one had him before a 7. Most of the 4 of them had him, 3 of them had him on as undrafted free agent. So he's more than outlived that. But I get what you're talking about. Controlling the football, you cut down the number of carries from McFadden, who's had injury issues and last year had a really nice year. That seems to work. And maybe If that's the case, maybe Ezekiel Elliott's out of the conversation.
I
don't think that he should
as
ever
much as
be
I
out of
love
the
Ezekiel
conversation.
Elliott, him at 4 might be too high to take him. But like
I
told
had him there in my last mock.
You did?
Oh,
Well,
yeah,
your
I
mock
had
is
Zeke
all
going
over
there
the
at
place,
4.
man. And interestingly enough, Mike Mularkey said today about DeMarco Murray that he will run out of under center sets, but admitted that Mariota is more comfortable
In the gun.
How do you square that circle?
You go pistol.
Just
Go
like what
pistol.
the Broncos did with Peyton Manning?
Go pistol, because then you still get all the same benefits from being under center, and your running back gets his downhill runs.
Right.
And you can still bootleg, play action, do all those other things. You go a lot more pistol in that situation.
Okay, let's go to Chris in Seattle, Washington. You are here with Charles Davis on the Rich Eisen Show. Chris?
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
Thanks for making it, bud.
I had 2 quick points if I have time for them both. The first one was about Peter King's comment about how he thinks they should get 3 reviews for one of them for head-to-heads or ejections, I guess. It's my impression that the refs already go under the booth to review those, so why would a coach ever want to challenge after they've reviewed under the booth? And second, about the catch rule. If you really want to fix the catch rule, I think the most important thing you can do is you got to vote for Trump. He's going to change America. He's the best.
Okay, yes, absolutely. Look, all I know is this,
Making
Chris.
the NFL great again.
Well, I mean, Trump was he tried to make the USFL great initially, and then that didn't work.
How about that great letter from John Bassett to him? Did you ever see that one?
No, I didn't see
John
it.
Bassett was the owner of the Tampa Bay Bandits.
Yeah.
And sent this letter to him about how much Donald was really screwing up the league and screwing up their meetings. And told me to punch him in the mouth the next time he had to.
Well, that's odd.
Have you guys seen that one?
No.
I've seen that.
That's an absolute classic.
Fantastic.
It starts out very respectful.
Very
and then,
respectful.
And then you can see the anger creep into it.
As he's typing,
As
he
he's
gets
typing,
more and more mad.
as he's dictating. And another thing, you do it again, I'll punch you right
Punch you in the mouth.
So what do you think needs to be done with the catch rule? What do you think needs to be done, Charles?
I think we got to take a deep breath and say common sense, and just almost say to yourself as an official, it looks like a catch.
Well, that's what the NFL is essentially saying.
It looks like a catch, called a catch.
That the rule says, again, what Dean Blandino is saying is 2 feet, 2 hands, or obviously 1 hand, depending on what's going on, plus time. Okay? Which, when I heard that, it also reminded me of that line, I forget what is it, for the Woody Allen movie, Crimes and Misdemeanors, that Alan Alda says tragedy is really comedy is really tragedy plus time. So we just don't need any issues with plus time with the catch
Heard
here.
what you said about putting that 1 second on
Why
there.
not?
Put that 1 second as you do the review.
Why not?
Did you keep it? Did you do it? I don't have a major problem with that at all.
Did it last for 1 second? The clock can always be superimposed
Pop it
somewhere.
in there
Take
and
a
you can
look.
do that.
Did he have it for 1 complete second? Did it go from 8 seconds to 7 seconds? Did that happen?
We've just got to figure out. We've just got to figure out that when these catches happen, that people at home go, "That's a catch," and and it's not just it's not turned over every time, and people go, "Now I have no idea what a catch." We've got to get back to where people say that's a catch. Look, Dez Bryant. I grew up a huge Packers fan. All right, so when Dez made that play against Green Bay, and I saw Terry Brown mark it on the side, he was right there. He even emphatically called it a catch, the whole deal. I didn't have any question in my mind he caught the football. I didn't have any question in my mind he made a football move. And then when I saw no catch, I was like, great for the Packers, but that's going to be horrible across the country.
I know.
People are not buying this one
Dez
at
Bryant
all.
caught it, but under the current way the rule is written, he didn't.
Yeah, and
because you need to complete the process throughout. I get it. But these guys, the process, sometimes they're 3 steps. They can gain 10 yards with making a process.
Make a lunge, make a move.
So if you are going to now make it time,
now
and you
got
don't want it, and you don't want to actually write in a rule what a football act is to try and give more flesh to the bone of what time is, then you go ahead and just actually
add the clock.
Have a clock on it. How about that now?
I can't wait to see that
well,
one.
I've got Dean Blandino on the show tomorrow.
Dean, run that through.
I mean, on Thursday.
Run that through. Put some things up on the screen with your guys. Take a look. I think it's got a good shot. I think it's got legs. Let's see. And then see what, like I was talking about the other stuff before, let's see what the fallout is. Put it to the test. Beat on it a little bit. Find out if it holds up. I kind of like it.
What do you think of the idea, because I know you're an all-sports guy too, what Johnny Bench said? You brought it up. What do you think?
Listen, everybody wants to. I remember when Goose Gossage said what he said. It became the get off my lawn moment.
Well,
and everybody
because he
went
was
crazy.
profane about it,
right?
and he brought Batista in on it.
And people are missing the culture side of all this.
Well, he
too.
characterized Batista in a very unfair manner.
Exactly. And that's part of what I'm getting from my baseball friends is certain guys are brought up playing the game a certain way. If we go to the Caribbean, if we go to the Dominican Republic, if we go over and we go watch a game, you will see guys react the way they're doing, and there's no brush back coming at them the next pitch. That's just part of the thing. He hit a home run, he's celebrating, he's this, he's that. Guys who are taught a different way, let's just characterize it as America and, make sure you've been there before and this is how we do it and all that. That's not as cut and dried as that, Rich, but it kind of breaks down into that category, Goose being that type of a guy. But also remember Goose, because remember, I grew up in New York. You're a New York guy.
He hit Ron Say in the head, and we thought Ron Say was a dead man.
I thought he was dead. And when Goose punched people out in big strikeouts, was he just devoid of emotion? No, he was not. Goose Gossage wasn't even close to devoid of emotion. So let's try and remember where we were with all that. And Johnny, of course, is old school. And, you do that, I'll buzz you in the whole thing, and off we go.
Speaking of old school, what do you think about your alma mater? What's going on there right now? Charles?
We've got to get a handle on a bunch of things there, and I know that they're trying really hard. Dave Hart, the athletic director, and the school president, and Chancellor Jimmy Cheek, and the whole crew. But we're also bringing in things that I don't know that you'll ever truly get an answer that's going to be able to finish things off. I mean, Peyton is sitting there 20-plus years out of being out of school, has quote-unquote settled things once or twice, all right, twice because of what happened before. And then the people who were smart enough to bring the last Title IX lawsuit, because that just kind of goes into the wind, they figure, Peyton Manning's a name, bam. And now it's back up and it's flared up again. I don't think you're ever going to get a true answer on that one. Peyton is adamant about where he was with this. Every day comes up with new information. This person remembers it this way, remembers it that way. Overall, you love Peyton Manning's track record. You love that. You hate the idea that, did this really happen? Did he really do it that way? Are we going to have a true definitive answer? I don't think so. But for my alma mater, it's feeling like I'm plugging it here, I'm plugging it here, there's it there. And I know that they're working really, really hard on getting that taken care of.
So thank you for coming in, Charles Davis.
Thanks for having me.
At CFD22 on Twitter. What show you got? Your Path to the Draft?
We got Path to the Draft today and all week at, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock Eastern time. Yeah, 3 o'clock we'll be on. So do that all week, and I prepare to be mocked on Wednesday.
Terrific.
This is my new one.
Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me,
You bet.
Rich.
That is Charles Davis. Watch Path to the Draft tonight on NFL Network.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.